Jan?
All right, a call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville for Tuesday, October 24th, 2017, and we'll start with roll call.
Barbara Doss?
Here.
Don Francis?
Here.
Barbara Stockhausen?
Here.
Ken Killian?
Here.
Eileen Nichols?
Here.
Tom Knoll?
Here.
And Catherine Westaby?
Here.
First item is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to the routine nature of previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer separate discussion and action. A is council minutes from our October 10th, 17 regular meeting. B is payment of bills. C is appointments to boards and commissions, and this evening I am reappointing William J. Closter and Doug Duplessis to the Airport Commission. D is licenses, 1 year and 2 year operator license to sell and serve alcohol. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Doss?
Yes.
Francis?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Knoll?
Yes.
Westaby?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. I don't have any this evening. If anybody in the future does want to talk, there are little green sheets of paper on the table back there, and you fill those out if you'd like to make a statement during this time. Reports in our packet, board, commission, committee minutes, redevelopment authority, board, Dawes,
Nothing.
zoning board of appeals, Knoll,
Nothing.
historic preservation commission, Killian.
No addition.
Library board, I have no additions, and airport commission, Dawes.
No additions.
I have a question about airport. On the first page, it says PSSI still owes about $12,000, another owes about $8,000. What are these? Are these renters? First page underneath 5B.
PSSI is the, PSSI is rents a hangar at the airport and also buys a lot of fuel. I think this was in, response to fuel, and when it was purchased and all of those kinds of things.
So there's some money owed.
Right. Sometimes at the end of the month, if they get the delivery of fuel, like on the 29th, there's 30 days in a month and they pay on the 1st, it might show a delay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our first action item this evening is the proposed Alliant Energy easement in Knollwood Park.
Yes, good evening. Alliant Energy has recommended or is proposing to install three-phase power down Highway 8081. There's a substation out by DeLeo Machining, and they would come down 8081 to town in order to provide looping for additional three-phase power for the city. They could use the highway right-of-way, but because of the steepness of the bank and things, they would prefer to get a 10-foot wide easement directly adjacent to the state right-of-way down there along what we know as Knollwood Park. This has gone before the Parks Committee and the Plan Commission. They both recommend approval. We've worked with Alliance representatives. It's appraised at $5,000. They're offering $7,500 for the easement, knowing that the recommendation is that it goes into a Parks Endowment Fund. Mr. Dennis Stevenson is here as a representative for Alliant in case you have any specific questions regarding this work. Their plan would be to do this in the spring.
I do. Does it stop at the Roundtree branch? this connection? Or what does it do to the,
Maybe it's
Grants.
better if Mr. Stevenson come up. Thanks.
Would you please give your name, Mr. Stevenson, and
I'm Dennis Stevenson. I represent Alliant Energy.
okay, thank you.
The question is, will it stop at Roundtree? No, it'll continue down to the intersection just past Super 8. It'd be, let me get my directions, southwest corner. And then we would continue going to the west along the existing 151 corridor right-of-way. So the underground actually will stop at the Super 8 property, and then we'll rise her up and then continue overhead into the city from that point.
Is it high enough if there's a flood? I assume?
As far as,
If you raise it up, will it be high enough? if
well, what
there's
we call a
flood?
riser, it means that we come underground up onto a pole and they can make our
Okay,
connections
okay.
aerial. So,
Okay,
yeah,
thank
we'll
you.
be plenty out of the way.
any other questions from anyone?
So I'm to understand that it's only underground to the edge of the property of the Super 8, then it goes back in the air even along Business 151 West, or is that underground?
That would be correct. It would be aerial. We would stop just past the driveway entrance into the luxury suites at Super 8, just a little bit north of that. And then we would rise her up, bring our underground back up aerial, and then continue. We actually have an aerial line down in that intersection currently, just rebuilding it.
So why not, are you replacing line on on Old 151 to the west?
That'd be correct, yes.
Or why not just bury it too? Seems
We're,
like
we're
if-
trying to make it so it's feasible to make the correct connections. It's kind of hard to understand, the language part of it, but if we try to go underground and rise her back up another pole or rebuild that, it's cheaper to rebuild that section rather than putting in what we call expensive switchgear that would accommodate the underground terminations. So it just, it's a lot less expensive to rebuild that portion along the west side or going west from the intersection.
And this is new line coming in from the power,
That's correct, yes.
you have no overhead line there now?
Howard explained there's a substation, it's called Hillman Substation. That currently is just a transmission-only substation. Next year, 2018, it will become a distribution substation, which will be the third substation in Platteville. According to growth, they're recommending that we bring another circuit into the city. Like Howard explained, it's part of our looping policy, where we can sectionalize or isolate sections of line if they're out of service and backfeed from different directions. So this gives us another opportunity to do that.
And my questions are basically based on the fact that in many cases, it would be preferable in some of our areas to have underground lines, and we're extending that option to you. I would hope that Alliant would look to put in underground lines where they can in our cities so that we can decrease the number of poles and wires around and about. We
And
paid a
we're
lot
doing
to
that-
have that done on Second Street.
Yeah. As part of this, we are looking at that. That's why we want to go underground in this particular section, just because of the expense. And a future consideration would be if that road ever gets expanded, widened out to maybe 3 lanes or 4 lanes, or redoing the bridge at that point. If we're back on an easement, then if they widen the road and we have to move that cable, then it's compensable. Then the DOT will pay us to move that. So that's another reason why we are interested in having this as an easement.
Any other questions?
No, this is more for Howard,
Okay.
Yes.
or maybe Luke. Okay, this is more a financial question than has to do with the actual line. So, anyway, you said, did we just have a Biney trust fund? We don't have it already invested?
It is, but
So So the question with the binding trust, we have a binding trust. The council has pledged the binding trust to match donations that come in to then be gifted to the Platteville Community Foundation, which would invest it in our Parks Endowment Fund. So it's to incentivize future and additional giving to match those funds. Does that answer your question? In
So
terms
it's
of a
moving
binding
from one
trust?
account into another account.
Correct.
Okay. I thought the trust is sitting in our city accounts and not being invested. That's why I wanted to make sure, because I didn't see it in the budget, that it was just sitting out there and not being invested.
Sure. The binding trust currently, a good portion of it has already been transferred to the Parks Endowment Fund, but the remainder is there. And as we've been getting donations in, we've been using those that money to match that, and then essentially double the gift to what goes into the Parks Endowment Fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion on the Alliant Energy easement request?
I'll make a motion, we approve the proposed Alliant Energy easement in Knollwood Park.
And the 7,500 would go to the binding trust fund?
Yep,
Would go to the Parks and
Or actually, the Parks Endowment Fund then?
right.
Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, we'll vote.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes,
Westerby.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is a request approval of the city and prosecutorial, I love that word, attorney contracts. Nicola?
So, our current city attorney of many years, Brian McGraw, announced earlier this year that he would be retiring come January. And so the city has undertaken the task of finding new city attorney services, and to that end, an evaluation committee was formed and a request for proposals was sent out. The committee was convened to review those proposals and interview certain attorney firms. And the result of that was the committee recommending these two firms, one to serve as a prosecutorial attorney and the other to serve as city attorney. And the two contracts were provided to the council in the packet. I did notice, and so several other people noticed, that there was an error in one of the contracts, and I apologize for that. It references a mayor, and of course, the city does not have a mayor. So that will be edited and corrected before being signed to give the authority to the council for reappointing the city attorney every 2 years. In that case, that was in the prosecutorial services, and that was Wood Law Firm. So that is what's being requested, is that the two contracts that are presented be approved by the council.
Questions, anyone?
I do appreciate that you reviewed my question on that line item regarding the mayor.
Yes, well, apologies for the error.
I was thinking about something else. What'd you say about the mayor? That is an old charter ordinance dated December 1967, so that's no longer true.
Correct, so we will edit the contract so it removes the reference to the mayor.
And also, the way that ordinance reads is subject to confirmation by a majority vote of the members elect of the common council.
So the sentence currently reads, "This agreement shall renew for successive 2-year terms as appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council." The proposal is to remove the words appointed by the mayor and, so the sentence will read as corrected, "This agreement shall renew for successive 2-year terms as confirmed by the city council."
So do we have to change our ordinance? Is that what it
You're
is?
not gonna put in about majority vote?
Yes, we can certainly use that same language.
Here's the charter ordinance.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you,
I mean, wouldn't confirmation always be, but, I mean, you wouldn't confirm if you didn't have a majority vote.
but this
Seems
is
a
in the
bit
contract.
redundant.
It might ask for 2/3. Some of these ask for 2/3.
I make
So,
I make a motion, we approve the contracts for prosecutorial services and city attorney services as, presented for city attorney and as, detailed today, removing the reference to appointed by the mayor and confirmed by a majority vote of the city council for the prosecutor.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
I have about 10 typos that I'd like to go over with, as far as the person that wrote this. Did you write it or Karen?
In the actual contract, sir? The actual,
The write-up of the whole agreement for both of them.
so the two firms were requested to provide a contract that they were recommending for their services. I'm not sure if edits were made by the city manager, but those were the contracts that were
Well,
provided to you.
All I'm asking is that I meet with the person that wrote this because there are typos in the document.
Okay.
Who wrote the document?
Well, Mr. Wood of Wood Law Firm would have written the document for the prosecutorial services, and Mr. Cole of Axley Brynwilson will have written the contract, or possibly he might have delegated that task, somebody from his firm. But I'm sure that either one of those attorneys or both of them would be glad to meet with you,
Well, I
as would
tell
I.
you what, I'll meet with the city manager. Is she coming back tomorrow?
Yes, she is,
Okay, I'll meet with her and give her my typo suggestions.
certainly.
I believe that she'll be back in the office on Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday, okay?
I'm a day ahead,
Thursday.
sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
Any other questions, anyone? We have a motion on the floor otherwise. All right, we'll vote.
Doss?
Yes.
Francis?
Yes.
Stackhausen?
yes,
Killian?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Nall?
Yes.
Westerby?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We have two items under information and discussion, the 2017 auditing services proposal.
So, we had a 3-year term on our services for our auditors, and the request is that the current term be extended by 1 year. So we have a proposal from Johnson Block to provide services for the audit of the 2017 financials, with the option to renew for 2018 and 2019 audits. It is the intent for staff to request proposals for auditing services during 2018, so that would be for the performance of the 18, 19, and 20 audits. But we're requesting, sorry for the frog in my throat, we are requesting that the contract with Johnson Block be extended by this 1 year.
Any questions on that?
So it's for 1 year, but they proposed a couple of years. And then it says in here we're going to have requests for proposals for 3 years coming up next year.
So we asked Johnson Block to provide an extension to the current contract, which they have done, and we can provide that to the council. In that proposal, they took the opportunity to give us the option to extend the 1 year to more than 1 year. So we could conceivably extend for longer with Johnson Block, or we could go out for proposals in 2018 for the 2018 financial audit. And Usually we do 3 years at a time, so that would probably be 2018, 19, and 20.
All right, next item for information and discussion, resolution authorizing the sale of Lot 43 of the Platteville Industry Park.
El's not here, so I will introduce
go.
that one. PADIC has been working with a prospect for locating in the industry park. They have a business that's involved in the warehousing, actually cold storage, refrigerator and freezer space for the food industry. They are interested in purchasing part of Lot 43, which is the western part of the new industry park next to Phillips Road. So based on the initial building that they would want to construct, they would need 4 acres, but they do have plans for future expansion, so we would also offer them an option on an additional 3.5 acres, 5-year option, that would maintain that land for them to feel comfortable that it would be available if they get to the point that they would be expanding the building. So initially they're planning on employing about 10 people, and the value of the building is about $3.5 million. So we have some of the initial information, but in your packet, I just got the draft of the actual legal documents, so we didn't have time to include all that, and I'm not sure you want to read all that, but it would be available for you to review at your next meeting. Any questions?
Will the company provide the wages and salary ranges of the 10 employees?
The sale will be governed by the land price formula, so the value of the land that they actually, the final purchase price is based on the value of the building and the number of jobs and the wages for those jobs. So I don't know if we'll know that at the time of closing, but we'll know that when the mortgage is cleared in 2 years.
So you don't know if...
I don't know that at that point. We could ask them. It's not part of the
Do other
initial
companies
purchase.
in the industrial park provide us with a range of the salaries for their employees,
Not
wages?
Not typically, but like I said, when we do the actual final release of the mortgage, they have to provide that information to PADIC, so we know whether they meet the land price formula or not.
And that was included in our packet, right?
Correct.
I'm sure it is included in the packet that says how much credit they get for jobs of,
Yeah, so the higher the pay,
For
the
one
jobs, the
lot,
more credit they get towards the value of the land.
Well, with this proposal, they really don't need to do much as far as supplying high-paying jobs, because just the value of the property takes care of the price of the land. Right.
Correct, yes.
$10,000, less $4,000 for each $10,000 cost improvement, so 10,000 to 3.250 million is 325, and 325 times 4,000 is 1.3 million, so they've covered the total cost, it looks to me.
Yeah, that type of building is very expensive per square foot, so it's a high-value building on a 4-acre lot.
That's why I was curious about the wages and salaries.
Yeah, I don't know that information. Ela may know that. She's been the one that's been in negotiations with them, but I do not know that.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Also move. to go into
Second.
close- Okay.
We have a motion and a second, and we will be coming back out of closed session without taking action. We'll just adjourn. So, Jan, we have a motion?
Doss,
yes.
Francis,
Yes.
Stackhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westerby.
Yes.
Motion carries.